Welcome to the Jim Florentine Comedy Metal Midgets podcast on riotcast.com. On today's podcast is an old friend of mine, haven't seen him in a while, a guy by the name of Tyson Walter. Tyson used to play in the NFL, play with the Cowboys, Texans, Redskins, and Packers from like 2002 to 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And haven't seen him in a while. I was just in Dallas, Texas this past weekend. We caught up. We hung out, watched some games together, got some lunch. And I said, you know what? Why not do the podcast? I'm a big NFL fan. As you know, I haven't done anything on the NFL in a while. But I really wanted to pick his brain about what goes on in the locker room. You know, the whole bullying thing that happened last year. Michael Sam, a gay guy in the locker room. Bill Parcells was his coach, so that was an interesting angle, and just the concussion issues and all that stuff. So coming from a player that played and was in the locker room and stuff, I think it's really, it's a good conversation with him, because I'm always fascinated by that shit, because you won't get it out of the NFL, the complete scumbags, which I think a couple people pointed out to me that, the whole Ray Rice investigation, the NFL hired, a guy from his law firm that actually represented the NFL in the DirecTV package deal that they just signed last year. So to basically, Roger Goodell hired one of his buddies that works for the NFL to investigate him to see if he did anything wrong. And of course, like I predicted, not guilty, nothing wrong, and they were going to release it on a slow news day. Someone said I actually guessed it right, because I was saying, I think if I'm not mistaken, I said like maybe Black Friday, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, or maybe like the first week of the playoffs on like a Monday, and that's when they released it. First week of the playoffs, the wild card round. Yeah, I'm not guilty or whatever the fuck it is. So, of course, season's over. Stick it right here. Nobody talk about it for 10 minutes and we'll move on. You knew it was coming. You really think a guy that he hired that works for the league is going to go, yep, dude, you fucked up. You got to lose your job. Stop. But that's why it's important to have a guy like Tyson Walters on that played in the league that can give us a little insight to what's going on inside the locker room and all that stuff. So let's check this out. I think you guys will enjoy it. Even if you're not an NFL fan, just the whole, the issues with the like I said, the bullying, the concussions, and a gay player in the locker room and all that shit. He has an interesting angle on it. He's a really good dude. And, yeah, let's get to it. Why not? Gary from Florida was a big hit last week. People are raving about him. It was good to have him back on. He was drunk, I know. I'll calm him down next time. I'm going down to Florida, Fort Myers, January 24, 25, Laugh-In Comedy Club. And I will have Gary back again. I'll make sure he's sober, and we'll do another podcast with him, because people cannot get enough of that guy. Fascinated by him. So Gary will be coming up in a few weeks. But let's get to Tyson Walter, and we always end with a song. There's a band called Turbo Negro out of Sweden. They put an album out in 2012 called Sexual Harassment, and this is one of my favorite song titles of all time. It's called Shake Your Shit Machine. So that will end the podcast. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Tyson Walter, former NFL player, mostly known as the Dallas Cowboy. But then I forgot that you played on the Texans. Then you went to the Redskins. I remember the Redskins.
Yeah, bounced around a little bit. So I was in Dallas for 3.5 years, and then went down to Houston for half season, and then over to the Redskins, and then finished up with Green Bay.
No, so you got drafted in 2002.
Yes. 2002 in the 6th round by the Cowboys, and Dave Campo and Jerry, and got the call on the second day of the draft at that time, and came down to Dallas shortly thereafter.
Oh, so all right, so Campo was and you were the 179th pick in the draft.
We'll go with that.
No, that's good, but
it's something.
But
I don't remember, but something like that.
A lot of 6th round picks don't even stick around in the NFL. That's a tough spot. You know what I mean? To actually make a team, start your first year and all that stuff. That's pretty impressive.
Well, I was fortunate. I got into a good situation with the opportunity, and they were willing to stick with me. I have to give the coaching staff and Jerry a lot of credit and thanks for that, because I got hurt early in training camp, and they took a flyer on me. And, then I stuck around for a few more years and was able to make it work a little bit.
What do you mean they took a flyer on you?
So I hurt my ankle in a practice after a scrimmage that we had with the Houston. So it was like 10 days into training camp, and I'd been doing all the offseason. So they had some idea. But apparently I'd done enough in 10 days where they were willing to take a chance on me, because then I didn't play in any of the preseason games. And so as a 6th-round pick, I get hurt after 10 days. I don't play in a preseason game, and somehow they keep me on the active roster, which is unheard of. No one is that crazy to take a flyer on a kid, just coming out like that, unless you're a 1st-round, 2nd-round pick.
So what week did you come back? You came back the rookie year, obviously, right?
Yeah, I came back my rookie year. I started practicing probably around week 6, and then week 8 I ended up actually probably dressing for games around there. So the second half of the season or so. Around there. Well, I think I started 9 games, so whatever. So
right,
about that timeline.
So when does Bill Parcells come in, become the Cowboy coach?
He came in after my first season, so going into my 2nd year, and the first time I met him was February of what would have been 2003 over at the complex, and we were back in the training room, and Bill came in for something. I happened to be sitting in there, and his first words to me were something along the lines of, I had some good Ohio State players play for me. Are you going to be one of them, or are you going to be one that sucks? Something
really?
like
That's
the first thing he said. Yeah, I think he said something like Pepper played for him and some other guys. And,
right.
And so, were you going to be one of the guys that is worth keeping around, or just, one of those, pieces of garbage? So that's Bill.
Yeah. I was really surprised that he took that job, because he, you didn't think him and Jerry Jones would work together, because Bill had such an ego, and so does Jerry. And Jerry, Bill hated that shit where the owners walking out on the field and all that bullshit and stuff, and visible and all that. But it made it work. So your first year with Parcells, how was he like as a coach?
He was hard. His thing was he was going to show that he was the boss, and that he was going to really instill discipline, and then at the same time change the roster, because he was the first guy since Jimmy that really balanced Jerry out and kind of took the reins in terms of personnel. And Jerry and the Cowboys really had been down at that point, and so Jerry's hand was forced, and so that's why Bill came in. He knew he had the power and was able to get that deal done. And so Bill came in, he was changing the culture, he was restructuring the roster to the way that he wanted to play football. And it was, very different from what the NFL is now, and the way the practice rules were. We had extended practices that would go for 3 hours plus, and he built an indoor facility. And so Dallas is hot as it is, and then we go in, even when it was 95 outside, we go in the indoor facility, which would be 115, and have these long practices and stuff throughout the season. And he'd turn the heat on and all that kind of stuff, and really basically toughen everybody up and say, there's a new sheriff in town, to make everybody know what's going on.
So he would turn the heat up when it was 95 degrees already in the bubble?
Yeah, there was no air conditioning. It was equipped for air conditioning. I don't think it ever got turned on once. And then, if anything, every once in a while they'd kick the heat on a little bit. And so you go outside and it'd be 95 or 100. There were several times I remember, and you walk outside and it'd be cooler than it was inside. And it was insane. And I was, I'm this kid coming from Cleveland, Ohio, and Ohio State, and I'm ready to kill myself just because I hate the heat, but that's all there is down here.
Right, because you grew up in Ohio, so it's like you're used to the winters and 2 months of nice weather, basically.
Yeah, if it gets over 80 degrees for more than 10 days, that's Cleveland. But so down here, even a couple years ago, we had 70 days in a row of over 100 degrees, and that's just in a nutshell. And then imagine putting on 15 pounds of pads and being practicing for 3 hours a day.
Holy shit, man, that's insane. So Bill, because usually when Parcells comes on a team, he purges the roster. He takes everybody off. Half the roster is gone. He wants to bring in his own guys. Yeah. That's cool that he actually made the cut.
Yeah, it worked out well. And my biggest asset was that I could play all the positions on the line and bounce around and provide some versatility. And the way the roster works on game days, you're down to 45 or 46 guys out of the 53-man roster. And so now it's getting more and more where you only have 7 or 8 offensive linemen active, and it's been getting closer and closer to 7. You've actually seen a couple times where they're only 6. So if you're not starting, which happened after my rookie year, then all of a sudden you have to have value, and that value is special teams. It's harder for bigger guys to do special teams. And then it's, as the 6'7" swing offensive lineman, you have to be able to play multiple positions. And so that's where my value ended up being at the end of the day.
Right. Now, I remember, is this true? Like, I know a lot of the Cowboys were getting in trouble. Mm-hmm. Like, even before, off the field, even when Campo was there, whatever, a lot of them are hanging in strip clubs and getting in Did Parcells, I remember the story, did Parcells tell all you guys, no, you cannot hang out in strip clubs?
Oh, yeah. Parcells started and a bunch of the coaches have this line, in college and the NFL and where have you. But his whole thing was nothing good happens after midnight. And I want to say it was I don't remember if it was his first or second year, but we have a break between your preseason kind of training in the spring, and then you have a month off roughly in the summer, and then you come back for training camp. And one of those points when we came back for training camp, I believe it was, one of the DBs in that break had managed to get shot in the ass at a strip club, outside of a strip club. And so he made him stand up in the chairs in the first team meeting and said, "Hey, KD, show him what happens when you're out after midnight." And so DB gets up, pulls down his pants, and shows everybody his scarf where he got shot in the ass.
Really?
So that was one of the intro meetings back after a break. So that was fun.
Wow. That's not true though. Nothing good happens after midnight. That's usually when they're shit, when it is good. You know, when chicks are drunk and they're like, "All right, let's fuck." It doesn't happen at 7 and it's at dinner at 7 o'clock. It happens after midnight.
Not unless you've got a gamer on your hands. So usually midnight after is when some fun stuff can happen. But like everything, risk reward.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, so I want to talk about what's going on now with the bullying. Mm-hmm. First of all, the whole Jonathan. I'm a big Miami Dolphin fan. The whole Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito thing. To me, it was way blown out of proportion. It's two guys busting balls. And, Mom, all of a sudden, it seems like he's a bust, Jonathan Martin, a second-round pick. And he's not carrying his weight. Mm-hmm. He's getting killed. He's getting a bunch of sacks. He got a lot of pressure on him. Richie's his buddy. They're busting balls. But he's like, dude, come on, let's go hang. And then, he freaks out. And his mom's a big Stanford lawyer. And she takes his phone and sees, he texts the N-word one time. And then that everything blows up.
Yeah. I'm going to preface all of this with, there are details out there. And I don't know what's what. And the whole situation is kind of crazy, and it's sad to see everything that transpired just because, it seems like people say that he's a good kid, and even though he's, struggled in Miami some what was going on, it seems like he's done some good things in San Francisco currently. The other day, he even just stopped a purse thief or something at a store. So. Yeah. But there is the thing is, everybody wants to watch the NFL and then think, as soon as they get off the field, they shut it down, and they're choir boys, and they don't use bad words, and they go to church, and, nothing bad ever happened. They don't drink, they don't smoke, and, they're perfect people. But the reality of the situation is, it is a hard business. You are basically, unless you're one of the top 10 or 15 guys on the roster, you're playing for your job every week. And every year that I was in the NFL, and you hear, stories around the league, someone gets cut on Christmas, someone gets cut on Thanksgiving, any week you can get fired. Your salaries, for the most part, not guaranteed. And it's a hard situation. And a lot of guys come from very difficult backgrounds, and there is a savage element to the game. You're inflicting pain on other people for your living on top of everything else. And so there's a lot of verbal abuse. And if you heard what was said in NFL locker rooms when I was there, and even a few years ago, most people wouldn't let their kids play football. But it's just it's the way it is. It's part of the culture. Is it the culture for normal society? And if you're going in to be an accountant, it is not.
Right.
But in a world where the game is based on violence and being savage when you're on the field and in that environment, it's a kill or be killed mentality. It's a bunch of alpha males trying to assert themselves. And that's what happens.
Right, so you got 53 people on the roster, 53 guys in a locker room. Mm-hmm. You just did a 3-hour fucking sweating 110-degree practice, and you got to hang. That's part of it, camaraderie, and just be, a team player. And that's, you're hanging around each other constantly, training camp, games. So as you become friendly and you bust balls. That's what guys do. Yeah. You walk in with a bad shirt in the locker room. Everyone's gonna, oh shit, and everyone's gonna fucking rip you apart.
That's exactly what it is. You come in, and there are guys who come in, you're supposed to wear a suit to travel. You come in with a shiny suit, and the next thing you know, you don't hear about it for the next 2 months, and everybody's, they'll take it out of your locker and, rip it up or set it on fire in a trash can, and you're like, some guys will pay $1,500 for the suit. They think they're the, cock of the walk, and then the next thing you know, they're wearing mesh shorts to travel because, guys took their suit and
really?
Jacked it up. But that's the thing. The other thing is that the NFL, your weird hours, your weird schedule in terms of when you're, able to do things. You don't have any time over the weekend, so your off day is usually a Tuesday. It's hard to have, once again, a friend who has a normal 9-to-5 job and have a regular kind of life. You can do it, but you're also talking about young guys who are coming in at 20, 21, 22 years old, and that's in the majority league. The majority league is 3 years younger in tenure, which means you're 24 or less, so they don't usually have attachments. And, they have, like we were talking about, a lifestyle that's more geared towards night in the service industry and whatnot. And, that's, what happens.
You got young guys in their 20s with a lot of money and some free time on their hand. They want to go out and get laid and do whatever and get in trouble and fuck around. You know what I mean? That's part of the perks.
And no one's been telling them no for their whole lives, for the most part, because when they're in high school, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And when they're in college, they were one of the top 5 guys on the team, most likely, if not the top guy for smaller school guys. And so you get to the NFL and, now you're getting money for it instead of just, school saying you should be grateful you're here.
Right.
And so it is a great thing. And you're making more money than, you're in the top 1% of the United States in terms of income if you make it through the season. But most guys don't realize that. And most of the time, people haven't told them no, so they don't know how to handle it and, deal with those situations. But at the same time, you're still entitled to go and have fun and live your life. But once again, that's just, it's a different world. Everybody wants to make it a normal 9-to-5 world, and it's not in any way, shape, or form.
I know. That's why it's like, I remember the big story was when the whole thing went down that Richie Incognito, the guard, he was, charge of the offensive line, basically. And he would have offensive line meetings at a strip club. And people were like, that's terrible. I would see these fucking CNN panels of people discussing, like, what if a guy was married and he's like, I have to go. I have no choice. What if a guy had a girlfriend? He's like, look, I don't want to go. You think any offensive lineman had a problem eating a fucking nice steak, having a few beers, and talking football in a strip club in their 20s?
I don't think, from what I've seen around the league and what I've heard, that is not an uncommon practice.
Right.
It's not an uncommon practice. No matter who wants to say what, that wouldn't be true. But that's, once again, you have strange hours and there's a strange culture, and you don't have to participate in it if you don't want to. At the end of the day, everybody's adults. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. No one is ultimately going to do real harm to you if you're not going to go to a meeting at a strip club, because there are a lot of guys that are religious that don't do that. There are a lot of guys that aren't that do, and that's everyone's prerogative. So everybody in those kind of things is relatively respectful, I would say. Are they going to bust you on it every once in a while and tease you? Yeah, you're going to get teased, but once again, that's life. It's happened since you were 5 years old on the playground, and it's going to happen in the NFL locker room because everybody in there is in an arrested development state.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. What about Michael Sam, like a gay guy in the locker room? It was a big thing. Obviously, he didn't make the team and stuff like that. Like, what you've been in locker rooms and stuff like that. What do you think would go on? Would he be accepted? Would it be weird to shower with him? All that other stuff, trying to make a big deal about that. And
I personally don't think now it would be, and I've thought a lot about it, and just talking with my friends and wife and family, or just the way the world's changed. So I came in the league in 2002, and you have to think back then you were still, and I'm going to use generalizations here, but I think the Ellen show came on just a few years before that, and that was a huge deal. There was an openly gay person on TV. And then, but since then, the intervening 12 or 13 years, there's been a massive shift in the gay Americans and the gay culture being accepted in the mainstream. And for the guys, and you also think now, so the guys coming in the league, that's over half of their life. They've grown since they were 8 or 10 years old now. This has been a growing thing where they've been, it's just been accepted. It's just a way of life, and no one thinks anything of it. And so I think, especially now, I don't think it's nearly the issue that people want to make it up. The media wants to sell papers and inflame everything. I don't think it's nearly an issue. I would like to say that I've grown in that time, and I came from a certain background, and I was not exposed to a lot of things, and I was very closed-minded. Whereas now, if I was playing in a situation, I don't care. Right. It is what it is, whatever. If I go to Lifetime Fitness or LA Fitness and I go in the shower, guess what? Most likely there's going to be some, one who's gay there as well. It is, it happens. I don't think I'm going to get jumped or anything like that. That's just this fear mongering that everybody does in the media just to, get views up or page hits or what have you.
Do you think, Do you think would anyone tease him? Like, go to a locker room now, like crack gay jokes. Would everyone be walking on eggshells in the locker room, knowing like you could bust balls about anybody, this and that? But a guy's going to be afraid to go there because then he might go to the press. I mean, that's why it seems like the NFL's not ready for it because the media is going to jump all over it. If, just say Michael Sam said, hey, one guy said, your boyfriend would probably like that. And then it's like, all right, well, who said it? And then it's a whole fucking drama thing.
Well, and we have to remember that in these kind of situations, it's not just one side. It's not just how Michael would react or this theoretical gay player. It's, how the guys would react that are making the jokes. And it's also how the front office would act and the coaching staff would act. I think there's a lot more, because of the age and whatnot, problems with the coaching staff and the management of teams accepting it, and they have first their bias because of age, which is just a natural thing. It's harder to accept what's going on in the world just biologically. That's how our brains are hardwired. But then also when you get the front office, you get their angle is how is this going to look, and they get all the PR crap and what have you, and that's why you see players get blackballed. I mean, it happens in the league and everybody can say it doesn't, but that's not true.
Right.
So the situation that we're talking about now, would he get teased? Yes, he's going to get teased. If you heard the comments that guys made about other players' wives or girlfriends, please, he would get teased less than anybody, the straight guys in terms of comments that were made that would be completely inappropriate, that if you were out in public, you would get punched in the face for every single day.
So a guy in the locker room would go, man, your wife's hot, man. I saw you on that. I'd love to fuck her. Do you think she'll fuck me? Like shit like that, guys would say? No problem.
Guys would say all sorts of things and a million times worse. I mean, that's light stuff. And so when that situation happens, it's like everything. You have a choice. You're going to play along with it and just relax, and everybody's, just messing around, and it's hardcore fun. It's the same as, if you go see a comedian. Some people, like harder edge, comedians. Some guys like Jeff Foxworthy, who's a bit more mainstream and palatable for everybody. And the NFL is a hard edge kind of group. It's, it's Norton, it's, pick your poison. And that's kind of the comedy is and the way everybody looks at it. I love it because I think it's hilarious.
Right.
But once again, as long as everybody realizes that we're just having fun, and at the end of the day, even though it is such a transient lifestyle, when you're on a team, you really are a family because you do have these weird hours. These are the only guys who have the same kind of schedule. So you're at each other's houses. You're going out to dinner with each other all the time. You're eating breakfast and lunch. You're usually eating 3 meals a day with them at least 5 days a week. Yeah. And so this is your family. This is a brother. I mean, just if do you have a brother?
Yeah, I got brothers.
So you've got some brothers. When you're growing up and whatnot, and even now, who do you give the most hell to? It's your family members.
Yeah.
I mean, did you go out, random guy on the street, made inappropriate comments? No.
No.
You said, what do you do to your brother? First thing I see my brother, I talk about, something I know is going to drive him nuts.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I do. But it's all fun, and at the end of the day, it's my brother.
So what do you think? I remember when he was on the Rams before he got cut, like ESPN did a story that, someone on the Rams, another player said, Michael Sam's being very respectful and he's not going in the shower and the other guys are. He's waiting. And that was like a big story. It's like, why the fuck do you even have to bring that up? So now the Rams front office, like, now we got to fucking deal with that. Jeff Fisher's got to make a press conference the next day going, look, there's no problem in the locker room. So as a GM and an owner and all that shit, do you shy away from that? Like, I don't need this aggravation because the media is just fucking, fanning flames here.
Well, and that's part of it. So there is a natural inclination, probably because of the generation, to shy away from having an openly gay player. But then you have the point where they, even if they don't want to think about the PR and they just want to do what they want to do for what's best for the team, they are forced in those situations because the media, whether it's ESPN or whoever, Fox or ABC, NBC, whoever the case may be, what they do is they are, and you can put this towards any news story, what they're doing, it's going this TMZ, this tabloid sensational route, and they're just trying to get, attention and then say they're sorry afterwards. It's all about getting views and then apologizing. And, and people I've known who have said, say whatever you want and then beg for forgiveness later. Right. And those were media people that I know that said it. That was the way that they operated.
Okay.
And that's what they do. And it's embarrassing at this point. If you're an adult, act like a fucking adult.
Yeah.
So
what would you do? Like, all right, so say you're playing now and there's an openly gay player on a team. Say it's Michael Sam. He's in the locker room and you have to shower. Is there anything in the back of your mind going, oh man, he's, we're in the shower at the same time. I wonder if he's looking at my dick.
Be flattered. least someone is. No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It's like most of the guys, you know the mentality in the locker room.
Yeah.
Out of 53 guys showering, how many do you think might have a problem with Michael Sam taking a shower with them?
I think in this day and age, maybe 5.
Okay, you're right. And the rest like, hey, whatever, man.
And that's going to be, and if you look at it, probably compared to what the cross section of the United States would be, or society, it's most likely less than what that percentage would be. Would be my guess.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's just
you get to you're like I said, you get to know these guys intimately, and I'm not trying to make a pun or joke or anything there, but you know who they really are, and they know who you really are, and so you're not just going to make these, just shoot off and just make these broad generalizations just because. I mean, so you're not going to go out and make a stand against somebody that you know is a good guy or decent guy that you hang out with.
right. Tell us about Jerry Jones. Is he a good dude? He gets a lot of shit. Even in Dallas, I heard the other night, someone was telling me at the Dallas Stars game or something he was at, and they put the camera on some celebrity and they went crazy and they put it on Jerry Jones. The whole fucking place booed.
Jerry, I have to preface once again, I'm very lucky. Jerry did me a favor. It was documented in Hard Knocks about keeping me, and I was a 24-year-old kid, and just thankful that I had a job and was able to, kind of realize a dream, and they took a flyer on me. So, and, so as much as people want to say he's crazy and whatnot, it benefited me.
Right,
so
right.
I can't bag on him too much. But at the same time, here in Dallas, because I live here, he does take a lot of flack. And it's because, he's made the comment, I'm the owner, I'm the GM, this is my team, I'm going to do what I want with it. And he has that prerogative, for better or for worse. But at the same time, I give him credit for standing up and doing what he wants to do and believing in it and not shying away. He says, this is what we're going to do, and he doesn't back down if it doesn't work. They're having some success right now, and they're running the ball, and it scares me because I'm a Packer fan right now because I know Aaron and some of those guys are still on the team. But I think if they win tomorrow, all of a sudden you're going to see the fans in Dallas turn around, and then
Jerry,
Jerry now if they win tomorrow, he'll get cheered if they put a camera on him, because they're like, we've been here before, get to the playoffs, and now we need to see real progress. Getting a wild card win doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Everybody wants the championship and to go all of the way. And I think if you see him at least get to the championship game for the NFC, and I'm going to assume play Seattle, then all of a sudden he's going to be back in the catbird seat, and next year then is going to be when he's on the line, because then everybody's going to expect them to take the next step.
Yeah,
but they've done a great job. I mean, if you look at what they've done, and whoever's responsible, where the rumors here that Steven's been more involved, and that's one of the big things that helped. They didn't take certain players that were very hyped by ESPN. They've taken offensive linemen. That's what they've built their team around. And everybody wants to say it's cliche, but you're seeing right now, offensive line, defensive line, run the ball. That's what wins. That's what Seattle does.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly the rumor was that Jerry had Johnny Manziel's card during draft when they were ready to pick, and his son's like, nope, we're taking an offensive lineman. And it was the guy Martin or something like that, or whatever his name is, the guy from Notre Dame, whatever. Yeah. And he's been phenomenal. Just shored up the whole line. So, and then you see what Manziel, he's only played a couple games in Cleveland. You see, and Romo's kicking ass this year, so Manziel would be on the bench anyway. So really, that was the right pick.
It's right now. It is clearly the right pick. I think it's going to be the right long-term pick, and it's for the Cowboys' sake. I hope it's the way they go down the road and continue to operate, because they will be successful with that model. Once again, that's how Seattle's won: defense, good offensive line, and running the ball with Marshawn. I love Russell Wilson. When I saw him in college, I made a comment to my wife that this kid's the real deal. When he was at Wisconsin, he's going to be a good player. I didn't think he would be as good as early as he was, but he's been a great player. So the Cowboys are on the right path, and now they just have to keep everything together.
Who's the toughest guy you ever played against?
Who's the toughest guy?
Who was like a dick on the field, like trash talking and saying all the shit?
Who was the guy, the craziest? Oh, I can't remember his name right now. And you have to, maybe someone over the next week can call Russ Tucker, who's on the Sirius and whatnot. He's one of my good friends I play with. But when we were playing on Thanksgiving Day against Washington, he's a giant defensive tackle who's much older than us. He was probably 34, 35 at the time, and we were 24, 23. And he was nuts. Ross tried to cut. I was playing center, Ross was playing guard, and we were double teaming and stuff, and Ross would dive at his legs and cut him out and all this kind of stuff. This guy is losing it and saying, Ross and Tyson, I know who you are. God knows who you are. Jesus knows who you are. You're going to pay for this. He screams this for the next 3 quarters. And the whole time, and he's just crazier and crazier. I mean, if I didn't know better, I would have sworn he was on coke, every other drug that you can imagine, because he was out of his mind. And then he starts, trying to get you through the face mask and grab your, between the legs and all, doing every kind of terrible, dirty thing that you can imagine in a game. But he was out of his mind.
So he would grab your dick just to like punch you in the balls.
If he had a chance, he would go for it.
Really?
And he would try to step on your hand if he could. And then at one point because Ross was really going after him and just kept going on his legs, and he didn't care because that's the way he was. And I got a couple shots, and then Jerry, because it was Thanksgiving Day, and so Jerry's on the sideline, and he sees us come off the field, and he's all excited because he saw us getting scrapping after a play with him, and so it just feeds on itself, and then it becomes kind of this mob mentality where everyone's acting like a jackass, and luckily the game didn't get out of control and the refs didn't lose control and it didn't turn into a total melee, but it was getting a couple points, it was getting close to it.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, does any guy doing trash talking on defense get in your head and maybe beat you on a couple plays and it keeps pounding away at you? Does it ever affect you on the field?
Not for me. I maybe for some guys, but that kind of stuff, it's I either ignore it or I just go with it and make kind of silly offhand comments back in the day and
right.
About where we're going out after the game and getting those kind of things, asking about his mom and his girlfriend or
really? So some guy would trash talk to you like, how's your girlfriend, how's your mom?
Or, that stuff, or you said little things that you think maybe. I know there's some guys, I never did this, I know some guys would study the program before the game and try to find little pieces of personal information and then dish them out, try to needle guys on the other team just to mess with them, because some guys get so worked up and they get hyped up and one little thing will set them off.
Really?
Yeah, and then they do lose concentration. That was never my thing. I was kind of a mellow overall.
Right. All right, cool. A couple more questions here. What do you think about the new rules in the NFL with fucking flags every play with defensive hold and interference? I mean, it's such a joke. It's just like you can't even. Can you let the guys play already?
It's embarrassing about what it's become. Part of the problem is because it's so ambiguous in terms of what really is a penalty and what isn't by the letter of the law. And I think, and I haven't read them, letter for letter, but it seems to be from the things that I have seen, there are almost some contradictions, and things happen so fast. It's bang bang. I mean, even I understand. I want player safety, as much as anybody, if not more. I mean, the injuries, whether they're physical or head injuries, or whatever, are a huge problem. I go to retired player meetings and I see what the damage has done to guys who are just 10 years older than me. It scares the hell out of me. But at the same time, when you're playing a game and there's so much on the line for people's livelihoods and all this other stuff that's going on in terms of monetarily and physically and health wise, if you're a receiver coming over the middle and you go up to catch the ball and you put your hands on it and a safety's coming across, they're trying to adjust and hit with the shoulder and make a play. But you know what? The receiver has a reaction too. He knows he's going to get hit, so he starts to dive. All of a sudden, he's getting hit in the head. What do you think's going to happen? And then you throw a flag on it. There's just this common sense missing to the penalties that are being called and how these things are being implemented. And I think that the league right now, because of everything that's going on, is very reactionary. And they haven't said, and somebody needs to say, okay, we're going to stop everything right now in the offseason. Let's sit down and think about this. And even if we can't get it fixed next season, 2 seasons from now, we're going to get this worked out and implement a whole new system where it's going to be right, and we're going to do it where it makes sense. They're just, right now, I think personally that they're very reactionary and they're behind everything that's happening to them.
Right. I've been calling out the NFL for a long time about, they knew about these concussions, all the damage it was, doing to these guys, and they just looked the other way. They didn't want to pay any money. They didn't want to, they didn't give a shit. And then, until Roger Goodell got, brought in front of Congress, and they said, look, we have all the studies right here. If you don't do something, we're going to do something. And then all of a sudden, concussions are bad. But it's like, they don't want to take care of the old players and shit like that. They're making billions of dollars, and I think it's bullshit, man. They had these studies for a long time, man, and they just covered that shit up, man. It's not right. This league's making a fucking $10 billion a year. Yeah. Give some of that money to those players that, that played before.
The problem is that it's a business at the end of the day. I understand they have non-exempt status in terms of being a non-profit organization, all that kind of silly nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
Congress,
So they don't pay taxes.
Yeah, so they don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid you make $10 billion.
I know. You don't pay taxes on it. Right.
The federal government couldn't use that. That couldn't help any programs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what is as far as retired players, especially, so you have current players versus the league and the ownership. There's a union for current players, and the owners are basically their own little union because it's 32 guys, and the commissioner's part of it because they pay his salary. And so the current players, once again, they are in round numbers. I'm just going to throw this out. Probably 2/3 are 25 years old or younger, if not higher, if not 75%, whatever that number is. They don't care about, and just think about when you were 20, 22 years old. They don't care about breaking an ankle. They don't care about having a concussion. They don't care about saving for retirement. They don't care about any of that stuff. It's not a priority. And like you said, they want to go out late at night and have fun, and that's what kids do. Because at the end of the day, that's when you don't have to have a real job and you can play a kid's game. That's what you're going to do. So, but they have representation as one block, which has power against the league. And that representation focuses on those things that those children, because that's ultimately what they are, want. Then you have this group of players who's either older and even not so old, they're 30 years old plus, and they're retired, and they have no one that represents them. So you have 15 to 20,000 guys who have to act individually for all intents and purposes against the league. There are a few different groups that are fractured and whatnot that infight between who's giving them money and who's paying for that. And so their needs are not represented, and the league knows they can take advantage of that schism between the two groups.
Right. So did you ever have any concussions when you were playing?
I've had more than I could count.
Really?
Yeah. When you look at what a definition of concussion, yeah, no question about it. I mean, I've been out, however many times that. I mean, it's less than 20, but in terms of concussions and the sub impact, which they say is just as bad, if not worse. I mean, there's no way to even count what myself or anybody really has had, especially if you play offensive line or in the front seven.
What about now? Does it start in high school and college and stuff like that with the concussions?
Oh, it definitely starts. I mean, I can remember in high school there are times where you do these Oklahoma or one-on-one drills where they line you up or pull around as offensive lineman, and you just drill your head and you're seeing stars. You don't go out,
right? But
that's a concussion, and the definition has broadened, but at the same time there are lasting impacts. And from what I've heard, it's not good, but it's better if you have them when you're, basically under 20, 19, some of that range, because you're still kind of developing, so you have a chance to recover from them. But at a certain point, and once again, I'm not a doctor, so take this with a grain of salt. Sorry.
That's all right.
So once you get over that certain age, at 20 years old, then you don't recover from those. And then it just becomes this kind of exponential curve of damage that you're doing to yourself. And yeah, when you're 30 or 32, you're not going to notice it. But when you start getting 40 plus, then all of a sudden things can go bad fast.
So you think you had like around 20? You had a guess?
Way more than that. So
have you felt any effects at all since you were retired? Are you worried, when you hit your 40s and your 50s and stuff like that?
No one knows what's going to happen. I think that's the biggest thing. There's no test for this. Really, or there are some that seem to be coming online, but there's still a lot that's not known. And I think that's the concern, is just nobody knows exactly how it's going to play out. And so I think everybody who is, once again, 28 and has a family, or 30 years old and older, who's played football at this point is concerned. I mean, I have friends who didn't even play in the league, who played small Division III college in Ohio, and they're worried about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks if you're in the NFL, those are the only guys who have impacts. But there's a big segment of the population that's played at smaller schools and through college, and those are hits too. Yeah, they're not quite as big, but at the same time, they're real.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, it almost seems like it's, people that smoke. Not every one of them is going to get cancer. Yeah. So the guys that got hit in the head and got concussion, some are going to be okay later on in life. Because, I mean, there's not every guy that's in their 50s that played in the NFL for 10, 15 years doesn't have brain damage, but there are definitely a certain percentage that do. I don't know, 15, 20% having major problems. So, it's almost like a luck of the draw. I got hit. I hope this shit doesn't, start affecting me in years. That's got to be tough to. to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern for everybody and their families at some point. You know, you don't know if you're going to have to pay for it or not, and if you do, what the severity is going to be. And like you said, there is a lot of, you know, luck of the draw in it. You don't know, and like it's the same for any kind of, you know, whether it's cancer or something else. I mean, genetics plays a huge amount into all of this, and you don't know. But at the same time, we're participating in risky behavior, so our odds, and I've seen some sites say we're 5 times more likely to get Parkinson's or Alzheimer's than the normal population and stuff like that. So as we say, that's a statistically significant anomaly. I mean, it's not an anomaly; it's statistically significant and material, and you know, it's a real deal.
Yeah, shit, man. Well, hopefully you'll be all right. You know, hey, do you ever use it for advantage, like with your wife? You go, you know, I had concussions. I'm sorry, I forgot about your birthday.
Not yet, but I may have.
That'll be good to get out of some shit. You don't remember when we were supposed to go out with my friends?
It would be good if she believed it all the time, but I think my wife's a little too smart for that.
Yeah, all right. One last question: Super Bowl prediction. Who do you think is going to be in it, and who's going to win? I predicted in the beginning of the year a Super Bowl rematch: Seattle and Broncos, and Seattle wins again. But you know, I don't know. You know, it looked to me, it looks like New England. And then, you know, possibly Green Bay or Seattle. Yeah. You know, Dallas, you never know, can make a run like the Giants.
They definitely could. And I want the Packers to win. I want them more than anything to win again. And so because of that, I'm going to let that get in front of me and say that I'm going to pick the Packers to go. And I'm going to pick New England to go as well. And I just say that Denver's been a little sketchy. I still think they're not healthy, whether it's the receiving core or Peyton. They just still don't. Even with a week rest, it looked like there's something else going on. Maybe they could get it back, but I just don't know that that's going to happen. I'd also like to see Peyton get another one because he's such a great quarterback. He deserves to have at least as many as his brother.
I don't like him. He's a great guy and a great quarterback. I just had enough of his nonsense with his commercials.
Well, yeah.
He doesn't eat Papa John's pizza. I don't want to fucking hear it anymore. Stop with the dumb commercials.
Now, if you own it, you got to pretend to eat it.
No, he doesn't eat it. The guy makes $30 million a year. I don't think he's bringing home a Papa John's pizza with his wife. Go, hey, it's Tuesday. We want to get Papa John's.
Well, he uses the coupons. That's the big thing.
Yeah, probably. So you're saying Packers, Patriots, and Packers win the Super Bowl.
That's the way I'm going to go. But I will say I am scared as hell tomorrow about the Cowboys running game. And just about how it's going to it can be damaging. It's been no one stopped it all year. Seattle couldn't. Nobody's been able to stop it really all year. So it's going to be a good round of playoffs this weekend.
Cool. All right. The great Tyson Walter is awesome. Great dude. And, that's a little insight on the NFL.
Yeah, we've known each other now for a decade or so.
I know. It's great, man. Yeah, you hooked me up with tickets to a couple games and shit like that. It's been awesome. All right, man.